If it feels like you're living in a world where everything is currently flipped, it's because critical theory is the mechanism that has been used now for well over a century to encourage people not just to create a different kind of culture, but to have a totally different kind of thinking. The Christian framework basically has been the way that people view reality for the last several centuries in Western civilization. That is getting turned on its head and replaced with a system that sees everything backwards. Carl Trueman has been studying the issue of critical theory in our demonstration. It is critical race theory, but there's critical social theory. There is critical political theory, justice theory, but it all basically has the same premise. Everything is upside down. From Carl Trueman, critical theory, whatever form it takes, relies on the concept of false consciousness. You don't really know for sure what you're thinking. The notion that the oppressors control society so completely that the oppressed believe their own interests are served by the status quo. It allows every piece of evidence that might refute one's theory to be transformed into further evidence of how deep and comprehensive the problem of oppression is. Perhaps you recall when Kanye West started to talk like a Republican. What was the response of folks who used to love Kanye? Oh, poor Kanye. Oh, what is the matter with him? Clearly his thinking is wrong. Furthermore, he was called all kinds of epithets because he was so oppressed, he was actually liking his oppressors. That is critical theory, that if you are in a class or a color or a gender that critical theorists have deemed to be the oppressed, if you say anything positive about the oppressor, it just reveals how oppressed you actually are. Furthermore, if you are in the oppressor class, if you deny that you're oppressing people, it merely reveals how badly you're oppressing them because you don't even know that you're oppressing them. Karl Marx is at the foundation of all of this thinking. It is undeniable that critical theory has its basis in Karl Marx. I would like to demonstrate that for you, courtesy of Carl Trueman. As you read this quote from Chairman Mao, you remember that lovable fellow, simply replace the word bourgeois, that's Marxist ideology and framework, with oppressor. So the rich people, just replace that with white people. Furthermore, exchange the word class, which was the way that Karl Marx saw things, that private property, oh, it's the chief sin, classes are horrible, we need to obliterate them. Exchange that word for today's usage of Marxist theory with the word race. So instead of bourgeois, we see white. Instead of class, we see race. From Carl Trueman. Compare the logic of critical race theory with Chairman Mao's infamous circular of May 16, 1996, a foundational document of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Quote, just when we began the counter-offensive against the wild attacks of the, not bourgeoisie, the oppressor or the white people, the authors of the outline raised the slogan, everyone is equal before the truth. This is white sloganing, completely negating the race nature of truth. They use this slogan to protect the white people and oppose the oppressed, oppose Marxism, Leninism, and oppose Mao Zedong's thought. Critical theory is Marxist ideology. It is okay if somebody wants to deny that, because that is not basically the big fruit that we are after. It is the ideology itself. At its core, I would say it predates Karl Marx. It goes all the way back to Greek philosophy. The Greeks used to think in dualistic terms. You had yourself the world of rationality, of logic, and then you had these other ideologies that were just hanging out there like religion or morality. They don't intersect, they're actually separate. We can rely on science and logic and reason, math, but the things that are thought processes, philosophies, religion, morality, no, those are kind of detached from what we know as reality. They were dualistic, and an early manifestation of that you've read about in your Bible in the book of Colossians and 1 Corinthians. It was called Gnosticism. The idea was that somebody, in order to be enlightened, they had to have an upper elevated knowledge, a secret knowledge. They, and they alone, understood how the world works. They could tell you why things are the way that they are, because they were informed, they were enlightened, they were Gnostic. Paul deals with this in the New Testament in a nascent form. It became increasingly developed and intrusive into Christian ideology. But Greek philosophy, known as Gnosticism, is basically what we're dealing with here. Critical theorists tell you if you happen to be lacking in melanin, that you're racist. And you would deny it, further proving your racism. And they would tell you, I know that you deny it, but your ignorance of it merely reveals how racist you are, because I know it. You don't know yourself, but I know you. What is that? That's Gnosticism. You can understand the way you're thinking and feeling, but I do. That is why critical theory, it predates Karl Marx. I believe it goes back to Greek Gnosticism, but no matter how you slice this ideological cake, it is a dessert that is quite bitter. Oh, don't worry. Your cake is going to be ready for your baby shower. Just putting the finishing touches on it now. Perfect. Yes, ma'am. You can pick it up at noon. It's just...